There is a difference between someone that is actually spiritually aligned and someone that's just performing it. Because there is a lot of spiritual bypassing, there is a lot of performative spirituality, a lot of concepts being thrown in, but it's just to avoid a lot of emotions or think higher of themselves. All about avoiding real growth or to seem enlightened, to avoid doing actual work. If it's the first time you hear about spiritual bypassing and you don't know what it is, I made an entire video about it, so I suggest you check that out if you want to deepen your understanding. And if you've been in spiritual spaces long enough, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. So today I'm breaking down 7 green flags in actually spiritually aligned people and noticing someone that is genuinely walking in their own spiritual path and journey and not just talking about it. So first and foremost, the first green flag is they're honest about their struggles. When you meet someone that's really truly spiritually aligned, they have gone through a lot and they're not going to go about thinking and pretending they're not. So if you meet an actually spiritually aligned person, they have definitely gone through a lot. Trust me, they probably have a very big story to tell. And because of that, they're not going to go around pretending they're above anyone else or above human emotions. They will tell you when they're struggling because they're very in tune with their emotions. They're working on how to be more grounded with their emotions and their nervous system. They'll tell you when they're healing through something hard, or when they mess up, or that they're still learning or still trying to heal something. Because real spirituality isn't about perfection or having it all figured out. It is all about awareness and growth. Because someone who's genuinely doing the work, putting in the work, knows that this path isn't linear. Healing isn't linear. It isn't from being totally unhealed to healed. It is very random. It is very hard to understand, and they know that. But they're not afraid to be real about it. If they're performative, they will act like, oh, I've got it all figured out. I've transcended past those emotions. I don't deal with negative emotions anymore. I really doubt that. Green flag number 2 is that they don't weaponize spiritual concepts. You know what I mean? Like using spiritual language to gaslight people, to dismiss others or themselves, or avoid accountability. You have to look out for some general or weird advice. If you're actually dealing with something, don't expect a spiritual person to come and save you. They can't just talk your way into suddenly being better. Because if you're actually struggling and they tell you everything happens for a reason, you need to attract this in your life. No, sometimes there is a very psychological human aspect to it, and you need to balance both. In terms of you can take time to put in the work, but you can't just avoid everything and expect a miracle to come and save you. A generally spiritual person will not use spirituality as a shield or a weapon. They don't use it to bypass real conversations, real accountability, and or real feelings. They understand that spirituality and compassion go hand in hand. You need to be psychologically in tune with yourself to be in tune with others. You cannot go about using spiritual concepts to try and help others. Sometimes you really need to understand your own emotional balance to be able to understand and be empathetic to others. Because some people who just do that may not even have any empathy. And empathy is one of those gifts that are really strong and is hard to fake. A very true spiritually aligned person will not use spirituality by blaming it on someone else. Because if you're actually spiritually aligned, you realize that everything is on your shoulders, everything is your accountability, all of it is your decisions, and you are in control of your life. So if anyone blames you or uses spirituality against you, they're performative and they have a lot of issues to work on. That brings me into green flag 3, and that is all about actually doing the inner work. There's a couple things that come in your mind when you hear spirituality. You could hear tarot, you could hear crystals, you can see their routines, their perfectly curated profiles, or anything like that. Those things are beautiful, they can be helpful, but sometimes it can be used to perform spirituality. Because as I said, spirituality is about the work, it isn't about external material. A spiritually aligned person is doing the shadow work, is going through their subconscious issues, and maybe even go to therapy. They're sitting through uncomfortable emotions, they're sitting through and assessing their trauma and trying to work through it, analyzing themselves, all of their patterns and their triggers, their reactions, their reflexes. They're not just going to pray to crystals or light a sage or candles and just hope for the best. They're facing themselves. So, what I mean is, you have to look out for when you see a sort of very nicely curated aesthetic of spirituality. Those mean nothing without you putting in the energy into them. This is what I mean when I'm saying they do the actual inner work, because you can get easily scammed, easily manipulated into thinking that they're a spiritual person when actually they're just using it in weird other motives. When spirituality is actually about helping themselves and helping others actually deal with emotions, with their life, making good decisions. Which is why if you see whatever nice decor they have, if their intentions, one, are empty, or two, are for weird motives or self interest, selfish motives, and they put your life at risk, which means if they're not actually in tune with their emotions and they're doing this entire spiritual work to scam you, because they want your money, they can easily use spiritual concepts against you and make you make very weird, bad decisions. And that is why you always have to make sure the person has good energy, not just a nice decor. Green flag number 4 is that they respect other people's paths. Meaning, spiritually aligned people will not need to prove that their way is the highway, their way is the only way that it'll work, their method is the only way that it'll work. If you don't do exactly what they say, your life is gonna go crazy, bad, and every bad situation will happen to you. No, you need to listen to yourself. These people who will tell you that their way is the only way are not spiritually aligned, because spirituality doesn't have one way, it doesn't have a set of rules. It is just about doing inner work with however your energy operates, because you're unique. And that's why, even if it did work for them, it doesn't mean that'll work for you, because you have different issues. You operate differently. Your nervous system is at a different temperament than them. There's so many things that comes into play when we're talking about people's paths. They will share what works for them, but understanding that other people's journeys are unique is another lesson. It's another form of understanding of spirituality. They're not out there preaching or shaming other people who do not follow the same practices. And that also goes to spiritual people. You're not going to go out there shaming other people's spiritual practices just because you operate differently. The spiritual world is all over the place. People have different ways of working into it, and that's totally fine. And people get really good results in their own timeline, and that's because that is their way of transmuting and changing and using their energy for their own good. It is as long as their practices always have good intentions, have good motives. This is why, for me personally, I will not touch witchcraft. I will not do anything with it, because a lot of it is about manipulating energy, and that is not what I like. I do not like manipulating people's energies. I like to help them understand their own energies and work on their energies by themselves with their own will and their own consent. That is what I preach, but I just don't engage with anything that doesn't give me good energy. And I'll say that because I want people who are really in tune with their emotions to understand that even if you're working on yourself, people out there may energetically try to do things against you, and you need to be aware that you need to focus on your path and not be influenced or have very bad meetings with random people out there. Performative spirituality is loud, and real spirituality is actually quiet, and a lot of people are lonely. And it is not a question of more spiritual than others. Everyone's on their own pace. And it's really good if someone's just starting today. It's actually inspiring for people who are on a more advanced path in terms of they've been doing this maybe for longer, or understand things in a different way, or are gifted in certain ways. But so many people are out here just trying to understand themselves, and that's the beauty of it. Green flag number 5, and that's so that they take accountability, which means they take accountability instead of blaming the universe or other people for their issues, their problems. A genuinely spiritual person will understand co-creation. They know they're not a victim of the universe. They know that they're a participant in this reality. They're a participant in their reality. So when something goes wrong, they won't just say, the universe is testing me, the universe hates me. If sometimes it's a lot about personal issues and emotions, you have to take accountability that sometimes it is a sign that there's some work to be done. They will look inward. You'd ask yourself, what is my part in this? What am I meant to learn this time? What do I need to shift? They take responsibility for their actions, their patterns, and their energy. And they don't hide behind spiritual concepts to avoid that accountability. Green flag number 6 is that they're kind, not just all love and light. Which means real kindness is usually quiet. It's about doing those random acts of kindness. It's about helping others, even if it's just one person, giving them advice or just being there to listen, or actually wanting to do something for that person's benefit without necessarily wanting something in return. It's also being there when it's not convenient or something to post online. It's actually being there and reality in the presence of other people. Something to look out for with performative spirituality, and that's it's just sending love and light, but actually just disappearing and not actually engaging with people that, if you're out there and you're following someone that's spiritual or that's seemingly here to help, but a lot of times they don't actually care about their audience. And I think that's really bad because personally, I do this because I want to see if it actually helps someone. And if it helps one person, I'm just very happy with that. If someone shares something in their comments and then they just don't actually help or give advice and they just, send love, send light, or just say something very basic. This means a spiritual person, a aligned spiritual person, will not just talk about compassion, they will feel it, they will be real about it. And it's not always showy. It's not out there. It's not, I do this, I do that. And that's why, if you think about it, a lot of celebrities do things behind the scenes. It'll be more about sharing these traits to make other people better. It is not about wanting to receive some sort of praise. Finally, green flag number 7 is that they're grounded in reality. Genuinely spiritual people know that you can be grounded. They understand that you can be deeply spiritual but still need to pay bills. You still set those boundaries. You still need to have those hard conversations. You still need to live in the real world, and you can't just expect a random miracle because there's a difference between the spiritual and the physical realm. They both operate in different frequencies, in different ways, different laws, different emotions and vibrations. All of it is necessary to understand. If you're a spiritual person, you need to be grounded with the reality of here and there. Or else it can kind of become crazy and you kind of forget that how the real world works. It is again about balance. They're not using spirituality to escape and avoid life. They're using spirituality to navigate through life, being guided, navigating life with more presence, with more consciousness and awareness, and with more compassion. They don't dismiss practical reality in favor of everything will just align. They do the spiritual and the practical work, both of them together, and that's what I said before. It is about both. You work with yourself here and your higher self. That is another video you should look at. What is your higher self? Good question. It's a really important thing to know. So these are the subtle green flags, and they're not that elaborate, but they are really important to know and bring to consciousness, because a lot of times people misinterpret what spirituality is. And as I said earlier, it's not just about the decoration, it is a lot about the self. You, your soul, your mind, your body. Mind, body, spirit, it's all together, and it's all about working in balance together to be guided, navigating life, learning lessons, giving to others, giving to yourself, and especially knowing that your emotions and you as a person, you're capable of what everyone else is capable of doing, but it's always good to help others. If you're on a spiritual path or you're just awakening, this is an important thing to look out for, because when you start listening to spiritual people, you don't want people to sell you something. You want people to actually help you guide into it more smoothly, because awakening isn't an easy thing at all. It isn't just suddenly becoming lighter and happier. Maybe on the long run, but initially there's going to be a lot of shadow work to do. So this video helped you learn a bit more about what it's like to actually be a spiritually aligned person and what to look out for in spiritual practices in the spiritual world. Please leave a like and subscribe. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.